Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right Daily. We are here today. We're going to have a great show. We have a great candidate running out of Georgia that's going to be with us today. Before we get started, I want to remember to give you guys a mea culpa. This is a new daily show. We're using new applications to actually come towards you. So therefore, we're still going through a sort of a learning curve to get this going, but we are getting the shows out daily. Before I get to the beginning of the show, let me just go ahead and give you a quick introduction to Miss Tamara Johnson-Shealey before we get into the program. Miss Shealey, how are you doing today?
Hi, Egberto. How are you?
So far, so good. We're ready to get on this program and get going with our senatorial candidate for District 40 after we get through the blog of the week and tell folks a little bit about what the program is going to be today.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, here we go, folks. Here we go. Today, the name of the program is Progressive Activist Tamara Johnson-Shealey Takes Georgia Senate District 40 by Storm. And this is an important thing because you know how I talk about the progressive action all of the times. Progressives need to get engaged, and they don't only have to get engaged, but they have to put themselves on the line to actually make the change that we as a country need. So anyway, the subtitle, Politics Done Right Daily, continues highlighting progressive campaigns. Okay, progressive activists running for office always face headwinds. They always do. They always face headwinds. They have a party with a deep-seated belief, a belief that America is much less progressive than it really is. Let me stop right there before I continue. When you ask people what kind of an America they want, when you ask people what they want, all items dictate that America wants a progressive country. It doesn't matter if they call themselves a conservative, right-wing, Tea Party, or whatever. Take away Social Security, take away all these items, take away their Medicare and whatever, and suddenly they realize that what they want are the products or the policies that were passed by progressives. Anyhow, going forward, progressives. It is really candidates sanctioned, or let me back up. It goes as follows. Progressives that are really sanctioned by our revolution, Justice Democrat, brand new Congress, and some running on their own are dispelling that false belief. They're telling people we are no longer going to follow the party line. We are no longer going to assume that people don't want the things that they do. We are going to go out there and we're going to talk to the people one at a time. We're going to tell them what the plutocracy isn't telling them. We're going to dispel the lies that the right wing are telling them. And I tell you what, it is true that many believe that some of this stuff has no preaching that preaching values don't work with these people. We will dispel those thoughts. Because the problem is, as Drew Weston said in his book, The Political Brain, it is all about how you approach people. It is all about whether you can garner that trust within people so that they suddenly start believing in what you have to say. Tamara Johnson-Shealey is one of those progressives. I met Tamara at Netroots Nation 2015 in Phoenix, Arizona. As I interviewed her for my blog, I immediately saw she was a committed progressive, one that needed to be in office. She had a presence. She had a presence like few first-time candidates I had ever seen. It was pretty funny because this woman had just completed an election and she just knew it. I am doing it again. I'm running again. I lost. And every time she lost, it's about a little bit more ahead. More people are learning about me and I'm engaged in the community. And that is what progressives have to do. That is what she's doing in Georgia 40. Nothing was going to stop her from running again for Senate District 40 in Georgia, which was ill-served or is ill-served by its current Republican occupant. Without support from the party and with little money, she launched a well-noticed campaign. A district that seemed unwinnable is now where? In the crosshairs. They are in the crosshairs. That is what you do. You develop a district. Whether you win or you lose, you respect the people in your district. You engage the people in your district. You make sure you leave nobody untouched. And that is what she does. You leave nobody untouched. So anyhow, a district that seemed unwinnable is now in the crosshairs, and the work she has done to build a base has encouraged the Democratic Party to engage, including the running of a more establishment candidate as her opponent in the Democratic primary. Not deterred, Tamara hits the pavement every day, meeting with the constituents and doing what community engagement is about when one wants to serve their community. So folks, what are your thoughts? Now this is a call-in show, but we won't have call-ins today because if I could change the camera here, I'll show you that we have all the equipment for doing that, but it's not connected because there are incompatibilities with different units that we are going to have to solve. So give us some time and we will have all of that taken care of just as it needs to be. So bear with us. We're going to have a good time. Before I go to the blog of the week, I want to get back to Tamara and say, Tamara, I don't know if you were able to hear the prenup that we did before. Were you able to listen to that at all, or? You could hear loud and clear. Well, you know, at this point in our in the radio show, what we do is we go to this part called the blog of the week. The title of the blog post is UK Labour leader has a plan. Democrats and progressives in the US should follow. And let me tell you, folks, this is very important. This is very important. I wrote this blog this morning knowing that I was going to be speaking to Tamara Johnson-Shealey because she is exemplifying what progressives need to do. This is what the Labour Party in England is doing or attempting to do, and what what's the name of their leader? Whatever his name is, I forget now. Jeremy something. What he is doing to engage the community and bring back labor. Anyhow, it goes as follows. Republicans' control of most states and the federal government did not happen by accident. Most don't see the GOP as a grassroots operation, but indeed, they fund their grassroots. Democrats just go for the bang of population centers. In a gerrymandered country, and one where 50 plus 1% isn't enough to get lasting, meaningful, middle-class centric legislation, one must explore other options. President Obama won in two popular and electoral landslides because he used the concept of micro-targeting. President Trump proved that while a fallen or a failing party cannot win by popular vote, micro-targeting in a gerrymandered country is very, very possible. Some may balk at Trump's method or the role of the Russians in his win, but the fact is it still boils down to targeting in all the right places. And guess what? That is what he did. Jeremy Corbyn, that was the guy's name I couldn't remember. Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party in the UK, is creating a strategy that many are discounting, but that could bring their party back into power. The Independent reports the following, and here's what they said. Not many people will have noticed the news reported on Monday morning, just as Theresa May's ill-fated reshuffle began, that Jeremy Corbyn has set up a community campaign unit, a small but growing department in the office that will focus on organizing with communities and groups of employees, helping them to campaign on local and working issues. This sounds innocuous, but it might turn out to be one of the most transformative political decisions of the Labour leader's career, because it could change how we think about political parties. If Corbyn gets his way, when you think of Labour, you won't imagine rows of MPs, meaning those middle prime ministers guys, on green leather benches, or a smartly suited minister chatting to a reporter. Instead, you think of activists reinvigorating their estates tenants association, while others organize their co-workers and stand with them on picket lines. But hear this. Of course, many in the establishment of the Labour Party are hesitant to change. Like our Democratic Party establishment, they want the activists, the ones bringing in the new folk, to bend towards them. Here's what they said. Some Labour stalwarts, like the party's newbies, to come to more constituent and branch meetings. In other words, they want you to come to their boring meetings and sit down and, where everybody wants to listen to themselves talk and everybody wants to know that they know about the democratic rules and all of that. But among the incomers are highly experienced campaigners whose talents may lie elsewhere. Like the members of Greece Syriza, the Corbynistas are drawn both from the trade unions and from the social movements, environmentalists, students, feminists, anti-racist, disability campaigners, and LGBT activists. Many of these people have been organizing in communities and in workplaces for decades. And if the new unit does its job, they're going to start doing so under the Labour Party banner. Think about it. I'm going to give I'm going to equate that to the Bernie Sanders movement later. The establishment complains that activists by their nature will create chaos because they won't stick to some script. Here's what they say. Some parliamentarians fear this could breed chaos in their party. They imagine, not unreasonably, activists wearing Labour t-shirts, going off message on the local evening news. Community organizing, however, a hymn sheet from which all Labour members can sing. All of this sounds very familiar, don't it? Think about it, folks. For my progressives listening, for my Democrats listening, my real progressive left-wing Democrats, and even my moderate Democrats, all of this sounds very familiar. It is a treatment that many in the Democratic Party establishment apply to those who are seeking more for the poor and the middle class. Those who do not allow the restrictions the plutocracy dictates to stop the fight for real progress. For whom? For all. Progressives in America, through organizations like Indivisible and Our Revolution, are answering the call. Most of the times, because we know there are some issues with some of these organizations that themselves have some problems, but we'll leave that for another time. They're mobilizing communities. Many are running as what? Many are running as Democrats. Well, what they hope is that the party will embrace them instead of trying the same old tired techniques that absolutely has not worked. Think about it. How the hell do you lose most of the states if most of the country is progressive? How the hell do you lose executive, the legislative, and with that, the judiciary, if it's a progressive country, my friends? Think about it. So what do you do to mitigate that? You run the people. You run progressives who will talk to the people, not tell the people, not try to do anything other than support, other than defend, other than make sure these people are getting what is theirs. And with that, welcome back aboard, Tamara Johnson-Shealey. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm wonderful, Egberto. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, look, this is very important because, like I said, in the pre-up that I did of you, I met you back in Arizona in 2015 for Netroots 2015. You were what I call a newbie. You were one of the newbies at Netroots, and you came walking through that lobby, and you came and you started to talk and said, "Oh, you're a newbie," and we got into that conversation. And after about 4 sentences, probably less, I said, you remember what I did? I grabbed that camera out of my pocket and I said, we got to get an interview right now, because you were already talking about people. You were already talking about what you're going to do. Tell us a little bit about, before we get into the politics exactly, tell me a little bit about you. What made you think this woman from Georgia was going to challenge the Republican establishment and get moving? Who are you that told you you could do that?
I'm going to go back to your story, then I'm going to come back to this question.
Sounds great.
When you and I met, it was my first time at Netroots, and I was already on fire when I got there. And I'll just tell you that Netroots for me, for those of you that don't know about Netroots, it was like the most phenomenal experience for me, because I think politically I knew I was different, and coming from Georgia, progressive and progressivism and this whole movement hadn't really taken form. I just knew in my heart I was a Democrat. That I was very clear about. But I knew that I really didn't fit in that Democratic mold. And just to hear you read that article, I knew I really didn't fit in that. And I had these radical ideas, and I had this fire inside of me. So when I came out to Netroots, I literally felt like, Egberto, like I had met literally my tribe, like my people.
We all felt that way.
Literally, I felt like I was amongst people who were thinking the way I was thinking, and I had never met any of you yet. And when I got there and I started meeting people, I knew that this was a movement and this was something that I would be part of for years to come. And I've been participating in Netroots ever since. And I marched in my first protest out there in Arizona. And
I remember well, because who was a little bit nervous?
I was nervous because, like I said, I'm coming from Georgia, and Georgia politics, we don't approach it that way. We don't, I am here in Atlanta, but the civil rights movement was well before my time. So, to see people marching and see people like really passionate about what they feel I was nervous and I was excited at the same time. But I did it, and I was so glad to be in the midst of that energy. I really was.
Well, some of the videos that you made are all over the internet, because you remember I gave you that camera, and then you used that. I think you were an iPhone person then.
No, I've never been an iPhone.
Was it Droid? Okay, I don't remember all that well sometimes. But you were there, and I was like, okay, she's getting with the program.
Yeah, and you remember the funny story, and as I was filming, you remember I walked into the pole?
Yes, I do.
I was so into the filming and being in the moment, literally walked into a pole, almost knocked myself out. But I got up and kept going.
But that, I think, if I remember correctly, that was after your first race. Is that right? Or it hadn't happened yet?
That was 2015. So I had already run in 2014. Yes.
And okay, so tell us a little bit more. Let's go back a little deeper. What made you believe that you could be that person that was going to be taking over that guy's spot?
Well, I tell this story, and I have to tell this story the way it came to me. And I know, Egberto, you've heard the story before, but I never saw myself literally like running. I knew I had a passion for politics. I knew, from working in the industry and the beauty and barber industry and touching people, I absolutely love people. I love people. And hearing and like I say, working in that environment, you hear and you know so much because people share their stories. You know a lot of stuff that you just is floating around in your head. And I started advocating for my industry, watching my industry unfold politically because there's this initiative to deregulate the beauty and barber industry. And this is an industry where people are getting personal services, and to not have people licensed and properly trained to provide these services where, this was my life and my livelihood. This was my profession, and to not be a legitimate profession because they want to devalue us was a...
To be clear, you had your own business, a complete beauty salon, etc.
Yes, I owned my own salon for about 10 years, and I actually did services myself for 18. So yes, I was a small business owner, and like I said, just hearing these stories, and I knew that I was going to run. So I started, like I said, watching my industry politically, and I realized that I could not, and I started paying attention to what was happening in my community and in my district, and there was this whole movement around cityhood. Where these areas now that are unincorporated unincorporated areas inside of counties are now wanting to become their own cities. And this whole cityhood movement was literally getting into, my kids were in elementary school, and the parents, we've all gone to school together all these years, and now our kids are in high school. And to watch parents fight over this whole new cityhood initiative where you were drawing lines down the street and dividing families and dividing communities. And I realized not only was politics affecting my industry, but now politics is affecting my community. And I just started paying attention to everything. And I realized that this particular candidate, Senate District 40 candidate, he wasn't challenged. And anybody that challenged him always fell so short. And I realized that there was an opportunity that he needed to go. He needed to be replaced. We initiated some early voting here in Georgia. And he was the one that said that he didn't want to see the church buses come to the poll, as if bringing, Black people and church buses to the polls was a bad thing. So, he needed to go, and he's been, he needed to go for a long time.
So he didn't come explicitly and said it. He just kind of inferred.
Inferred, yes, he did. Yeah, but we knew it. We all knew what it meant. Right,
absolutely. Now you live in a pretty balanced demographic area. Is that correct?
I do, and it's been trending for a long time. More and more, more and more minorities have been moving into the district, and it's been trending for a long time Democratic. But there was never a strong challenger. So when I ran in 2014, 37%. I know I lost, and I tell the story. I know I lost, but I felt so accomplished in 2017 to have challenged this incumbent, a sitting incumbent, and getting 37%. I felt accomplished. So, and I knew immediately I was going to run again and again and again until I defeated this man. So I'm into my third run this time.
Now, I like the way you kind of placed it out. In fact, you had this social at Netroots. I think it was at the Netroots 2016 when you reserved a room and you invited people over to come in, etc. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I felt like I was really amongst family and friends. Like, I really feel like Netroots is like I said, my tribe. And I decided when I ran in 2016 to host a meet and greet and invite some of my fellow progressives that knew me well or wanted to know more about my candidacy to come out. And we did a nice little meet and greet, had a little breakfast, and, spreading the word about my campaign. So yeah, I did do that at Netroots 2016.
Now, the one question you haven't answered yet, which I asked, is what made this young woman believe that she could do it? Where did that come from? Was that life experience, or what was it?
It was spiritual for me, Egberto.
Tell us that story.
It was a spiritual moment for me in my relationship with my God, the God I serve. I knew down in my spirit that I had to run. I was actually in an office talking to someone, and she had said to me, we need somebody to run in your district. It was just a comment that she had made. And when she made that comment to me, literally, Egberto, my heart started beating so fast. I felt like I was about to have a heart attack. Literally, I knew I was called to do this. And when she said that, my phone rang at the same time. I ran outside, and it was my sister, and I told my sister, I said, this lady just said something to me, and my heart won't start pounding through my chest. And she was able to calm me down and got me back, through that day. And then the rest of that week, literally, I wrestled in my spirit with this because I knew I had never had any political experience to the extent that I could run for a state senate position. Like that was never something in my mind. And I wrestled with it all week long. And then I remember waking up that Sunday morning in tears. And I called my sister and I called her and I said, I cannot shake this. And then this is what she said to me. And that's when I realized I had to run. She said to me, why would you even try? So I knew then that I was called to do this. This wasn't, some people, see the opportunity. I saw no opportunity in this. I just saw, it was me wanting to serve in my district, wanting to serve my industry, just wanting to serve genuinely in my heart. It genuinely is in my heart and in my spirit.
Well, I mean, I think it pretty much cost you a lot because you went through a whole lot of tribulations, even as you were campaigning the very first time. Is that right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that.
Right.
I am writing, just to kind of give, I haven't put it out completely, but I'm writing my story. So I'm in the midst of the last 2 chapters because I feel like this, where I am in this season, is really the final chapters of this journey that I've been on. It was a 5-year journey. I got, this calling, and I knew that my life was changing back in 2013. And so in 2014 when I ran, in 2015 I got married, and in 2016 I ran again. In 2017, it's just been literally a 5-year journey for me. So yeah, and it's been hard. Raising money has been the hardest part of it all because as a no-name candidate, I mean, who's gonna get behind you? No one knew me. So in 2014, I raised just a bare minimum, just enough to get me to 37%, which like I said, I felt very accomplished. 2016, I raised just a little bit more than I raised the first time. So I'm hopeful this time that people will get behind me and support my campaign and support my efforts and even support broadcasts like yours. Like, we are the next generation. Like, this is the next generation of media. We are the next generation of politics and policy. We are the next generation. So I'm hopeful that people will hear our stories, see people like you and me, and support this new generation of progressive. This is a new movement.
Well, one of the reasons that I started the Daily Show going with Politics Done Right Daily is because I knew that progressives, right now we're at an inflection point, Tamara, an inflection point. This is a time where progressives could really move forward. The country is waiting for it. Trump has accelerated that for us.
Yes, he has.
Here's the problem. Part of the hindrance that we have now is not the Republicans. It is the Democratic establishment.
Yes.
And it pains me to say that because personally, I consider myself a true Democrat. Mm-hmm. But I wrote a blog a few months ago speaking about rails. When you have a train, mm-hmm. The train, there are 2 tracks. There's a left track and a right track. Mm-hmm. But there's one thing specific about the combination of those tracks. And you know what it is? They're both going in the same direction.
Yes.
The problem that we have is the right moderate and the left moderate are both going in the same direction. One is just further away than the other, but it doesn't do anything to change what needs to be changed in this country to support you, me, everybody else, because of a system that is corrupted. And that is where we're at.
Yes.
That is why we need the Tamara Johnson-Shealeys. That is why we need all these other people running. And that is why we're going to get them. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it pains me because as a Democrat, like I said, I'm a Democrat in my heart. And to fight, it's hard enough when we're fighting this Republican regime, but when we have to fight inside of our own party, that to me is the most disheartening part of it all. And I actually said this out loud on another broadcast that I don't play party politics real well.
For technical difficulties, because we are going to cut our interview short But there's one important thing that we must know, and that is that Tamara Johnson-Shealey will be back with us in the next few days, where we'll take care of getting her to tell us what her next steps are in her political career. Tamara Johnson-Shealey, thank you so kindly for having been with us. Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled E-G-B-E-R-T-O. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.